Welcome to the Christopher Peter Review. In this special episode, you will experience the topics discussed on the Christopher Peter series. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Christopher Peter series, part of your experience with the Christopher Peter Review. The reason why our political candidates debate each other is to provide prospective voters with a clear view of where each candidate stands on the issues that are important to the voters. Debates over time have helped shape the fortunes of politicians, giving voters an introduction to novice candidates and seeing how well they handle the pressure or not handle it. But debates can be a fleeting experience in our politics, particularly for established candidates who are known by the voters. There is a real risk of damaging an established candidate's brand with a bad performance, or giving an opponent fodder to campaign off of for the rest of the cycle. That risk was seen last night. The debate was a bad showing for Joe Biden. This is the election where Americans do not really like the choice set, and the third-party options are just as unsuitable if not worse in many regards. Voters have experienced one term for both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. They generally know what to expect or what they can expect. The Trump era was generally good for our society, except for the handling of the pandemic. The Biden era has been a challenging time, to say it in the nicest manner, largely due to Biden's handling of every aspect of the job. Being a rematch of the 2020 election, there are obviously things still boiling from that, especially when you see the frail state that Joe Biden is all too often in during public appearances. Did he benefit and exploit the conditions of the pandemic to hide his incapacity? That is clearly an underlying theme this time around. So I guess in response, his campaign thought it was a good idea to hold the earliest debate in decades of presidential contests. It backfired? Debate performances are largely judged on how one performs against expectations. The Biden camp seemed to enter with every advantage in this first debate. It was on a network that was favorable to his base and very hostile to his opponent. Rules to prevent interruptions seemed set up to give Biden the best chance for success. Instead, Biden mostly appeared out of it, and barely there by quickly and incoherently spurting quips and predictable responses. They wanted to show Biden as enthusiastic and energetic for a second term, but they gave America Zombie Joe. Think about that for a second from an objective standpoint. One candidate seemed to get every request that he wanted. None of this seemed to be anything one would expect Trump to agree to. CNN was extremely hostile to him, providing a platform to every anti-Trump perspective, even the ones proven false. Why would Trump agree to the microphone rule, when he is known for taking the air out debates by not allowing his opponents to finish a thought? At first, it seemed like a strategic error giving your opponent every perceived advantage. But Trump effectively allowed Biden to damage his own brand by showing America really how incapacitated he really is. Setting aside the politics, it is sad to see an elderly person in that condition and in the position he is in. Clearly he is not fit for office. Surprisingly for many, Trump did show restraint that his opponents did not expect him to have. Different media sources spoke about Biden wanting to pivot his strategy months ago to taking on a more adversarial needling approach. They felt that Biden could get under Trump's skin and get a reaction. That was another failed tactic. Debates are about performance against expectations. Trump performed well against the expectations of going into a hostile environment where his opponent set the rules of engagement. Aside from style, debates are also about substance. Biden really did not provide much there. I am sure he did not really want to come out and spike the football with a claim of creating 15,000 jobs. Trump clearly retorted that any job creation was a bounce-back job that was simply restarted from the pandemic, which is factual. The jobs supposedly created under Biden pre-existed the pandemic largely. Many jobs are second jobs or part-time work. Biden wanted to downplay the success of the Trump economy, when Americans clearly have an issue with the economic decisions and performance of the Biden administration. Trump pointed out that he afforded Biden a great situation, and Biden created the economic problems we are experiencing today. Biden mindlessly rambled many times, and even seemed to take credit for things that occurred under Obama and not his own administration. The issue of illegal immigration, Biden clearly lied and made claims that he had the lowest rate of illegal immigration ever. Ironically, when the question was that he had record rates of illegal immigration during his term as president, Trump again pointed out that all Biden had to do is not do anything, and he would have had a secure border. Many people make a big issue of what they perceive as dishonesty or lying. I too dislike dishonesty and lying. Also, I think it is important to differentiate between people calling things they do not like lies, and actual lies based on purposeful distortions of real facts. Trump exaggerates too much, but Biden all too often is clearly and obviously lying. The excuse being offered for Biden's performance is that he had a cold, maybe even COVID. Clearly an excuse, because why not share that up front? I believe we all saw the real Joe Biden and did not like what we saw. After a week of preparing, the results are pretty disheartening. Disturbing that a sitting president needed a week-long break to deliver that performance. The first debate was a debacle for Joe Biden, but maybe the goal was to get an early gauge of where he is, and then make contingency plans during the Democratic convention. Talk of making a switch seemed like political nonsense, but might be the only real path forward. But that would be disastrous for Democrats. Thank you for experiencing the Christopher Peter Review. Please continue to visit the Christopher Peter Review at www.crcreview.com and on YouTube and YouTube Music. Until next time, welcome to the Christopher Peter series, part of your experience with the Christopher Peter Review. Not that long ago, I went to a Target and noticed that both self-checkout sections were blocked off so customers could not use them. Rather than wait in the line that was long and growing, I decided that I would leave and come back when they are working. Later that night, I found out that Target and other retailers were thinking about scaling back self-checkout because so many people allegedly steal from self-checkout. There are reported increases in shoplifting, as crime has spiked or increased in many areas, and there is an alleged more lax response on the issue, as some retailers have adopted the non-intervention approach. Combined with the economic challenges facing many people and declining morality, it is not shocking that some people are exploiting the lax enforcement to save a couple dollars. There are consequences for every action. The loss of self-checkout is an inconvenience for a shopper trying to leave a retail store without small talk. But the loss of a retailer for a community can have bigger impact on local jobs, reduced access or convenience for the goods that people need, and lower property tax offsets for local homeowners. I do see the argument from the usual groups sympathetic towards the perpetrator of the action, questioning whether the data justifies the feeling of higher shoplifting. When there is a purposeful lax in intervention at the store level and enforcement of laws deemed to cover petty crimes, can you really trust that the data is reflective of the true situation? Companies would not bear the increased cost of relocating a branch if not justified. The cost of relocation and operating a store in a perceived area is not insignificant. As a result, the local economic problems causing people to shoplift will continue to grow as businesses flee communities that could use the economic activity the most. Losing self-checkout is annoying, but the other losses are more impactful. The look the other way approach in regards to crime is not making our communities safer, better positioned for growth, or closer. Rather, the lack of enforcement creates an unintended invitation for people who either operate with criminal intent or simply avoid criminal behavior out of fear of the consequences to act on their worst instincts. We need to stop this fabricated notion that victimless crimes exist. These companies and businesses are rich and have insurance. Just because you have health insurance does not mean you should act unhealthy. Just because you have car insurance does not mean that you should drive recklessly. There are costs that go well beyond just what insurance pays, and unnecessary use of insurance raises the cost for everyone, as insurance companies will raise premiums, and the increased premium cost increases the price at the pump. There is a social danger when you let the bad actors and weak-minded people in our society operate on their worst instinct. Thank you for experiencing the Christopher Peter Review. Please continue to visit the Christopher Peter Review at www.crcreview.com and on YouTube and YouTube Music. Until next time, welcome to the Christopher Peter series. Premium brands handle their business much differently than those chasing them. While new brands outwardly embrace risk-taking and pursuing non-traditional approaches, the brand leaders will usually make their actions seem like the norm, or innovation that a leader would make, not a desperation attempt for fleeting short-term gains. The Los Angeles Lakers are a premier brand for the NBA. The purple and gold brand has now the second most championships in the history of the league, but probably has more iconic figures to wear their jersey than the Celtics. Premium brands usually go about their decision-making in a different manner than what we see with the Lakers. The Lakers reportedly settled on the next individual to lead their organization as it navigates an interesting period. Former NBA player and Duke standout J.J. Redick will lead the organization as it transitions from the LeBron era to whatever is next for them. He will help shape what that may look like. The NBA has shown in the past that experience as a head coach is mostly overrated. Although there has been some notable challenges for some recently, experience around the novel head coach may be vital, as the inexperienced coaches work to set the culture and identity of the team. Redick obviously is a brilliant basketball mind, as one can see from his media work. Interesting to see how this turns out. The job search was pretty interesting. As I said in the past, it is somewhat of a trap because the situation comes with an unreasonably high demand to win now and then, potentially rebuild in 1, maybe 2 years. Their first choice expectedly rejected the aggressive offer the Lakers made. His current situation was more appealing than making the risky jump. Premium brands usually get what they appear to want, because most seem to manicure their searches to look like they generated great interest and selected the best candidate, and that candidate accepted. Provides the appearance that the position is desirable, and nobody turns them down. The Lakers are on the cusp of showing they can navigate back to their premium status and elevate past that perpetual play in appearance. In contrast, the Boston Celtics built a championship roster through a patient and reflective process that did not overreact to the momentary adversity, rather than outsource their talent search to a star player. They seemed to weather any storm and proceed forward, making changes when needed, but overall staying the course. There was great pressure for them to break the tie with the Lakers. Northeast sports fans are not known for taking a laid-back approach with their teams. Whether it's Philly, Boston, or New York, fans will let their teams know what they think at any given moment. The fiercely passionate fan bases keep pressure on front offices to achieve. Two different premium brands, two different approaches, two different states. Please continue to listen to the Christopher Peter Review on YouTube and YouTube Music.
Welcome to the Christopher Peter series, part of your experience with the Christopher Peter Review. This actually Jennifer, and here is my piece from our Real Identity podcast episode. Enjoy and visit the Christopher Peter Review for the full episode. There is no denying that America still has issues with race, gender, and other demographic-based topics. But I do not believe for 1 second that it is as bad as the media wants you to believe it is. And I do not think that the identity politics that many are pushing will do anything but move society towards the divided society the proponents supposedly fight against. They say we cannot be a color-blind society. If you do not see color, you will not see racism. Clever quip. Good for selling a t-shirt or hat. But if you see everything in the framework of race and identity, then you will more likely than not fabricate discrimination or excuse it when convenient. Rather, we truly see things for what they are and what actually happened. For instance, we see the conflicting narratives about identity being used in our sports discourse, using identity politics to defend bad behaviors that are universally viewed as bad, regardless of demographic, but also used to claim offense by hysteria-driven fans. They say only discrimination can only be white versus the world, not being the multidirectional bad act that it truly is. We are seeing how identity politics is causing political progressives to rethink their foundational politics, as there is a lot more anti-Semitism among their base than they originally thought. Because one's identity is supposed to prevent them from being bad. The reality is anyone can be good, bad, or indifferent, based on the individual choices, attitudes, and behaviors. It is irresponsible to try to manage social stats to fit the identity narratives, like what we are seeing being done in terms of crime in our communities. A bad act is a bad act. It should be prosecuted in the same manner, regardless of demographics, and should not be amplified or reduced for demographics either. Justice is supposed to be blind and consistent, but the proponents are harming society by using identity as its goggles. Our identities help shape our persons, but it is the individual choices that we make that determine whether we are a good person or bad person. This is also something we need to discuss more in the future about how society is not able to accept that people are the deciders of their outcomes. We are going through great lengths to separate people from the responsibility and consequence of their choices, when we ought just accept that our decisions and actions have consequences. We all would be better off. No, that cannot be right. There must be an alternative explanation. See things for what they are. See the facts, evidence, and data, and create factor-based solutions. Not purposefully flawed ideas that are destined to fail and that creates real harm. Real problem-solving requires addressing the actual issues, even when it requires having a difficult conversation on truths people do not want to accept. Thank you for experiencing the Christopher Peter Review. Please continue to visit the Christopher Peter Review at www.crcreview.com and on YouTube and YouTube Music. Until next time.